can you make it like a screensaver? Something that you could email to Chris and she can put up there?
Yeah, well, I don't know. See, the studio that they're operating in is nothing like this. This is a very low cost.
Here? Oh, so where you're gonna be
Yeah,
at
where
is-
I'm gonna be at.
It's hot.
But I want him to eventually.
They want the
I'm
plan
gonna
B, their own plan B.
have him get in contact here
that's fine.
because if he can utilize
see they
this
came from me.
facility at low cost,
What?
I don't see why
Yeah, they can
he
be special call
wouldn't.
me
You know
on
what I'm saying?
13.
I don't think he knows.
Hold on.
Oh,
It's an
I'm not
African
sure what the
gentleman that I-
criterion is
Yeah,
for him to be able to do that.
Every year
Um,
they're supposed to do annual reviews.
But,
They've
I
been
mean, he
doing
needs
this
a
since 8 years,
producer.
there's one annual review.
Well, he is a
I
producer.
got it.
I
That's
mean,
right, right.
I
That's
guess
all.
he's gotta, anyway, Pokey,
this is the
Pokey
problem
can
we
tell
want.
you
Yeah.
what the criterion is, so.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, I
we talked
can't.
at this,
I
so
can't
we
wait for
can-
that
we
because
can-
I think it's
I'm
gonna.
tell you that they
I
should
think
have
it's gonna
eight, they
open
only
up a
got one.
larger conversation.
Yeah, we've got
They
1
don't have
minute
one
and, we're gonna be going live in just a minute.
Right.
Good.
Good. See, somebody's scared we're gonna actually do something.
We are going to do something.
Oh, we gonna do something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we gonna do business.
Well, man, I was looking over in Switzerland, man. I'm into this energy thing, man.
Yeah, I know.
This guy would come up with this energy, this whole tunnel thing, man. It's powerful, man. So, I think within a year, I'm gonna be on. I'm gonna be sold, and I'm gonna be off. I'm gonna be off the grid. It's been a while since I've been over here. You know, these brothers got the tablets and things of that nature, man.
Well, that's just so I remember.
Younger school.
I'm gonna tell you
We got
something.
schools and we got, old school.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Trailer Park Show. Happy New Year. What an awesome time to be alive. You know what? Christmas was really good for us. It was really good. And you know what? What made it so good was Jesus. He made it so good. So anyway, I just want to say welcome everyone. This is our first show for the year, and it's going to be a dynamic show. I'm going to yield the floor, and I'm going to allow Mike Lee to come on and take us on in.
Good evening. I'm Mike Lee. I'm the Director of Outreach and Engagement for the Travis County Republican Party. To my immediate left is a cohort of mine who sits on the City of Austin African American Resource Advisory Commission, Mr. Kenneth Thompson. He's told me I can call him KT or Kenneth Thompson. He'll bite my head off if I call him Ken. He says he didn't play it like that, but it's Kenneth Thompson. Next to Maryland is Mr. R.W. Bray, who's the distinguished Director of Black Outreach and Engagement for the Republican Party for the state of Texas.
Welcome.
Next to R.W. Bray is Mr. Clifford Stiles. Clifton Stiles. Clifford, I'm sorry, there's a Clifford on the commission with me. It's Clifton Stiles. He's one of the members of the African American Advisory Committee for the Travis County Republican Party, which the party so graciously allowed me to form. Now, if I have a mantra, it is this, and I'm climbed on very often by my baby brother for saying this. I think that what's good for the black community is good for the community, period.
Yes.
Because I believe that if you lift up a part of the community that may be lacking, you eliminate social problems, social costs, and it makes for a better overall community. And I'm hopeful of being able to persuade my conservative brothers in my party that that is the thing to do, because I believe that it's always the right time to do the right thing. There's no wrong time to do the right thing. And I think the right thing is to try to build up, raise the entire community. And even though my brother Kenneth Thompson, he and I have some political, philosophical differences, maybe we haven't found any yet. but with that background, that backdrop, he and we haven't had a fight yet.
Well,
I don't know that we will. There's
well,
no need. I
no,
think we're on the same page.
Right, and I think because what we are both striving for is to enhance the quality of life for people who look like us, and then, like I say, if that is enhanced, then that enhances the quality of life of all folks. So therefore, and this battle takes place on multiple fronts, and so therefore, we are not in a position to where we should be building enemies. I'm trying to build allies and to move this thing forward. So that's why you have not, and we will not probably have those kind of fallouts.
Well, you have the right to disagree, but it's okay. We can still be in agreement on some things.
I think that, our objective, at least in my view, we need to try to get things done to make the community better.
That is true.
Plain and simple.
That's true.
I don't care what color you are, how tall you are, how skinny you are, how fat you are. We need to make the community better for everybody.
Well, we need to be unified to do that. So it's a great thing that we're all together.
Now, I think as far as matters go on the state level, I think R.W. Bray can really give us some insight and information on that, because he's the boss of all that.
Yeah, I wish I was the boss of all that. I think, if anything, I'm the advocate of all that. The state is big. It's huge. I think it goes without saying that what is happening in the East is nothing in comparison to the need of the West. And so, the political activity in the East is not the same as political activity in the West. Contrary to popular opinion, there are African Americans in the West Texas, and some of their needs and their allegiances needs to be met, and their allegiances, in my opinion, needs to be met by the Republican Party of Texas. So there are some activities in the West that I think we need to address, but let's just attack the East, since there's so much activity. I think Mike and what Mike is doing here in Austin is phenomenal. It's even more incredible to be able to meet men of like mind when you travel, because it's not many of us. But I think those little chosen few, those little pockets, are probably going to do some of the most powerful things across Texas. So right now we are making sure that we concentrate on really the three main points of Frederick Douglass. Number one being that of economic freedom. Allowing individuals or teaching individuals how to step out on faith and become entrepreneurs. Instead of looking for jobs, they start where we help them to become job creators. That takes, in my opinion, a mindset of transformation. Earlier, I heard Kenneth talking about Malcolm X. The amazing thing about Malcolm X is that he was bent on making sure that African Americans understood their power, not only politically but socially.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, somewhere down the line, basically off of Democrat ideologies, it's wooed so far to the left that African Americans forgot exactly what Malcolm X actually was standing up for, trying to teach them. Amazing thing is, Malcolm X actually called Democrats chumps on one of his speeches in the 60s. But I think when we have a mindset shift, and then it's going to come from individuals who break through the ceiling of complexity of how we can get out of this situation. There's always a ceiling of complexity in the black community, and it means we have to start changing our ideologies. I think that once African Americans start seeing, okay, well, there's more wealth and there's more opportunity for me as an entrepreneur than it is for me as a laborer, because at any given day I can lose my job, and then where am I at? And the entrepreneur who steps out on faith knows he only can eat whatever it is that he kills. And so he gets off of a labor time system and more into a results-oriented time system.
There you go.
And that's where I think African Americans are moving. I think the second point would be that the power of political agitation. Frederick Douglass obviously led the way in political agitation. But he also taught us the importance of making sure that we teamed up with anyone who was an advocate for the same things that we were advocating.
That's right.
So if there's someone who believes that individuals are equal when it comes to races, then those are the individuals that we need to team up with. If it's someone who believes that African Americans can become not only business but social entrepreneurs and changing their own areas, then I think that we need to collaborate with those individuals, regardless of what color or economic stratification. I think the last thing Frederick Douglass stood for, obviously, was that of collaboration. So when you take political agitation, along with collaboration, along with entrepreneurship, I think what we have is the individuals that you see at this table. Individuals who are committed to this old ideology, Republican ideology of Frederick Douglass. And what's sad is that we're still trying to promote this ideology today. You would think that we would have picked this up. Unfortunately, here we are again addressing the situation. And I hope and pray that from situations like this and episodes like this, I think that we can actually change the future of what African American engagement looks like in Texas.
I would just want to say this, but Malcolm probably had some things to say about Republicans back then also. I just want to clear that, because I think I think again, as we have alluded to, what we are talking about is what's best for all of us. And I think Malcolm would say, what, regardless of who you are and what you're affiliated with, if you are not for me, then you was against me, and so I like the fact that, that we can start to have, what has really been frustrating is that we have not been able to have honest conversations about silos that someone have placed us in. And so this is a good time. I like these conversations because this is an opportunity where we understand again that perhaps we have much more in common.
That's right.
And then the entrepreneurship, I used to have a mentoring program, and one of the things that we used to do with all of our mentors, all our kids, is tell them, go and research black inventors.
Right.
If you're tired of cutting the grass, right? But then, you know what? If you don't, go invent who creates the lawnmower. If you like this air conditioner, so we've always had this entrepreneur niche in us, right? And somewhere where we have this complacency, has kind of took a hold on some parts of our mentality that we have to shake off.
Yeah.
I think there's another niche that we've always had as a people, that is in education. Now, there's one thing that I didn't know a lot about Austin when I first got here. But when I learned that the Houston Tillotson was built before UT was built, that kind of, it kind of turned my head a little bit. I didn't know that was the case.
The oldest university in the state.
Education has always been one of our things, and to me, that was evidence of that. And as part of the engagement outreach effort in Travis County, Clifton Stiles doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be doing quite a bit of work at Houston Tillotson as a member of the African American Advisory Committee for the Travis County Republican Party. He's going to be doing a lot of things over there. There are a lot of plans we have for things, but I have to facilitate. There's some relationships I have to facilitate for those things to happen, but they'll be happening starting next week probably. But my main thing is that education is important, is the key. Now, I was doing some reading recently, and I read something that knocked my socks off. I was reading a book by L. Douglas Wilder, and in his book he points out that in the 1800s, African Americans were more literate and were better read than they are right now today. And I don't know that I can wrap my mind around that, because it makes no sense to me that people were dying to read, and now many of our people are just dying without reading. And we need to be knowledgeable and informed. I believe that's one of the pillars of what we espouse in the among us conservatives, at least people in the advisory committee with me, is education, empowerment, and entrepreneurship. Because we want to be free.
That's right.
I was reading further recently, and I was reminded of what the March on Washington really was. It wasn't for civil rights. It was the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. I have another friend who actually on the other side of the political aisle who points out to me, Michael, people don't come to America to vote. They come to America to improve their socioeconomic situation.
That's true.
And this is what we need to focus on. Right, Cliff?
I agree.
That's right. I really think, and thank you so much for having me here. I really think that the whole portion when you're talking about freedom and what that word really means to us, to me, and this might sound awkward, but to me, I'm already free. I'm free to utilize information. I'm free to attend HT, which is where I'm currently at. I'm free to move about this city. I'm free to create, free to use whatever means I can to create economic freedom, whether that's entrepreneurship, or if I do have a trade or a skill and I want to utilize that at a corporation, I'm free to do that. A lot of people are not taking advantage, or they're mistaking advantage of the things and tools that we have at our disposal. Facebook, social media, all these things in our community that we could be utilizing, which we do to a certain extent, but not largely. We're not taking advantage of it. If you go on Facebook, you know, you have people who use it professionally and people who use it as a means to communicate with their friends. If you go on Twitter, they have people who utilize Twitter specifically, professionally, or the other. I can go on and on about that. How are we using these tools? You know, HT is a great example, and I can't wait for us to engage that campus the way I know your vision is going to be. But that's a pillar in this community. Now, I'm not originally from Austin, but when I came here after doing my stint in the service, one of the main things that drew me to Austin was Houston-Tillotson, right? HBCU,
Right.
oldest university here. And when I got there, enrolled and everything, I thought to myself, wow, how small is this college compared to what's going on across the street there? And then I saw the young people and I realized half of that school is Hispanic.
Probably today, yeah, I would think so. Yes.
And that really tripped me out, you know, because I've served with officers that have gone to HBCUs and everything, and they used to talk about, you know, good times, party and everything like that. I don't see that at it. Matter of fact, before I even got to HT, I didn't even realize what was going on that campus. So I think that's almost as if that's a ground zero for us to not only talk about conservative issues, but our issues as a people. And I want to do that with you, Mike. And also talking about Austin, I've had the privilege to meet so many wonderful African Americans. I've had the privilege to sit in on conversations with a lot of different groups that are here locally. And there's such a wide array of ideas, passion, problems that we face. But there's one thing I always see that's lacking, and that's an end result. Now, I might be stepping on some toes or anything like that, but I think it's time that we put these banners aside and get to some hard end results. I'm very privileged to be part of Travis County Republican Party, and I think that we can use that banner to not only rally, as Mr. Bray said, more like-minded individuals, but to produce outcomes that will help us entrepreneurial-wise, economic-wise, educational-wise. Because again, when you're talking about Frederick Douglass and you're talking about that time period, you know, we have to remember there was a Tulsa, there was a Black Wall Street. What happened? What happened to that spirit that we had to come together, pool our resources together, create together? What happened to that? I hear a lot about, and maybe I'm jumping subjects, I hear a lot of divisive talk about police brutality, and I'm a big supporter of the police. Obviously, I'm a military guy. I'm a big support. A lot of my buddies are police officers. I have some friends where I reside in Pflugerville that are police officers. This type of divisiveness is not, in my mind, going to further anything. In all actuality, it's going to make division, and it's going to harden that division. And my thing is this: we need to come together, and we need to draw some lines in the sand and make some hard goals and achieve these goals. Time now.
But we need to decide who's going to draw the line in the sand? Who's going to be? Well, hold on a second. Let me, who's going to draw the line in the sand? And I too, have a great deal of respect for law enforcement, right? But also, I have a great deal of love for myself.
That's right.
And so they should coexist, and so they should be able to coexist. And so, because when I start looking at a lot of our problems that I have collectively, right, when I'm introduced to any system, right, particularly these systems that have this thing called disproportionality. I mean, let's deal with some real things here, right? Many times I'm introduced in those systems, through law enforcement, right, for some unknown reasons, but we can have that conversation. But I think here, again, when I want to emphasize here, because I love the spirit here, and in fact, I can appreciate the fact that, hey, in this environment, this political environment, that we're having this conversation, because I think this is the opportunity to have richness, right?
Yes.
But I think if we start to, pick at little things that will unearth a scab or two, then perhaps we're not going to make the process. I think here what we should be talking about is the fact that whether you're Democrat or Republican, if you are African American in this in this community, in this country, you witness that there's some things that need to be done. And I really I don't get too much caught up into too much any longer of the party, because my result has always kind of been the same, regardless who's been in power. Now, but what I like to hear, that we're talking about more than anything, that I think I hear Brother Bray talk about here, is when we start looking internally. See, when it's not, when we start looking internally, look at the greatness that we are.
Yes.
And whatever are the dividers, right? We don't allow those things to exist, because again, when one of us succeeds, all of us should succeed.
That's right.
And what we don't talk enough about, I think we talk about education. What we really don't do enough is really talk about how do we appreciate one another. And how I tone about, who we are and what we can be, and then also, and how do we connect with our younger people about the history, that powerful history? Because many of them, even though they have the smartphones and have access to it, they ain't going there, right? And so how do we do that? And because, for me, as, how do I start getting out of the way? And laying that foundation of strength, of self-awareness, that you're not a product of the slavery mentality that you've been told. That you got some kings and queens blood in you also, and so that's a whole conversation that we have to. And then I think, again, as Mike said, when you start elevating my spirit, right? When you start elevating my existence, right? Then I'm elevated. And so once I'm elevated, then everything that I touch is elevated, because how I process information is different. How I walk and how I stand is different. And so for me, that's regardless of what of some party affiliation most of the time, right? It is my affiliation with who I am and what I am. And I think that's what we sometimes, and I don't want to say we, because obviously there's some of us who get it, right? I mean, there's some of us, that understand what we have to, and language is a powerful thing, and so we have to be very careful with it, because when we say none of us are doing things, that's because some of us are, and so, and the fact that we're here now, coming from different walks of life, having a conversation about a form of unity, that you don't see, you haven't seen, you sure ain't been seeing on Austin television, right? And like I said, I like you, I've been to some of those meetings. Most time when I go to these meetings, I normally just sit on the side, I just sit on the side because I'm listening to them, but I'm not in their position. So all I can try to do is demonstrate by who I am and what I am and how I do things and how I construct my conversation, what things I'm involved in, right? And say, hey, these are the fruit of how my spirit have given to me, and so, and then how do I become a blessing, one thing that we tend to, say we're blessed, and to me that's past tense. And what I mean that is say, you know, if you're a Christian, if Jesus Christ died on the cross for you, see, that's already done for you. And so the question is, in this thing called this active life, if you're talking about the living water, right? The question is, are you a blessing? And so, and I think being here, we're being a blessing, you know, because we're being active. We're doing something with the blessing that from being blessed.
In this, we're in a very peculiar, if I said that right, peculiar state of time, right? In this political realm where we have the elections coming up.
Yes.
We have very outspoken leaders at the top of each party, some spouting not so good rhetoric and some spouting rhetoric that is completely going straight into outer space, right? But bringing it back to us as a people, right?
Right.
Again, to what you said, we're witnessing a lot of things that are bringing us into the street. We got brothers and sisters protesting almost daily. We have a sense of division in this country when it comes to the criminal justice system, understandably. And we also have, there is an air of hopelessness in the youth. And I say that specifically when I think about situations that have happened in Baltimore, situations that are constantly occurring in Chicago and cities across the nation, right? And I always go back to economics, right? How do we bring ourselves out of these situations unless we have an economic footing, unless we have jobs, unless we create jobs, unless our young people take education seriously, healthcare, you name it, you can go across the board. This is nothing new. I'm 35 years old. I remember my mom talking about this. I remember being younger, my uncles talking about the same stuff. The only thing that I see that is different is that there is now a camera. You cannot hide anything anymore. And in a couple of months, it will come out. Just like the case of the individual that was shot in Chicago. And it was a year-long, basically, cover-up of the situation. But guess what?
Tamir.
It eventually comes out.
Yeah.
My thing is this. We as a people need to get back to economics. We need to empower ourselves. We need to get back to hiring our own. And I'm not saying these things to sound bigoted. I'm merely just talking to my people, right? We need to start doing these things. You talked about leadership. We need to hold our leaders accountable.
Absolutely.
And again, I still stand on the same standpoint that we need to draw some hard lines in the sand. Time now.
Okay.
I think we need to remember who we are. There were African Americans who were doing great things during slavery, right after slavery, all the way through the segregated times up to 1954, who were almost punished for being scholars, for whom trying to do something was really dangerous, and not just from the police, like the next door neighbors.
I remember you told me your story about how you were in college during that time period and how that was not an easy task to do.
Well, we have to remember who we are, and you have to focus on what the business is.
That's right.
I was talking to Corey, and I was telling him when I was in law school, there were 750 law students at SMU's law school, and there were 5 black guys. He says, man, it must have been awfully hard, man. It must have been, a lot of racism. I said, let me tell you what I thought about it. Me and another guy started a Black American Law Student Association.
I hear you.
I mean, that's what you do. You take care. You focus on business and what needs to be taken care of, and the heck with all that other stuff.
That's right.
I don't have time to be worried about what you white folks are doing or what y'all worried about. I got
That's right.
stuff to do. And we have to focus on the work that needs to be done. And we need to take back ourselves and our community.
Right.
And that's not a racist or bigoted statement what you make.
Right.
We're just talking about simple, common sense things that we need to do. Please.
I just wanted to say this because I think what's been floating around is powerful, and off the heels of what you just said, Mike. Everything that we've seen, any uprising that we've seen across American history, has a lot to do with the fact that African Americans at some point had to find some self-worth. Whether you're talking about back in the Civil War days, you're talking about civil rights, or you're talking about now with Black Lives Matter. This is an ethnic renaissance,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
after every ethnic renaissance, there's always been precursors. People going to the street, right? Or you'll see marches, right? You'll see riots, right? None of that's new. The wise people can look back and say, okay, I understand what this is because time always repeats itself in some way. History has a way of repeating itself, and those who are wise learn from it. So if now is a renaissance that we're having, then I think one thing you said was it was a powerful word. You said internal. We are learning the importance of self-worth, which is why we're in the streets. But now we need to learn the importance of collective worth.
Come on.
And the moment you start learning your collective worth, you'll stop worrying about what other ethnic groups are doing, and you'll worry about what needs to happen in your own ethnic group. And here's the power behind that. What I see in our community, and I travel to Texas, I see our communities, a lot of people start blaming auras, right? Or they'll blame white people, right? For whatever it is that they don't have. That system was created by what I call political formers. So we have these political people that we have been, or blacks have been voting into office, and they come around during harvest time.
Here we go.
They come around during harvest time, and that's campaign season. Now they've already laid down the seeds throughout the year, the seeds of divisiveness. They've laid down the seeds of welfare, right? They're handing out stipends, energy stipends and taxi stipends, anything you'll need. The same mentality that the white slave owners had. They promised them a roof over their head and three meals in a cot, right? Everything they need to take care. I take care of. I'm your master. Well, those political guys now, they do the same thing, and not just one party. In every party, a lot of parties do that. And so when you see these individuals and you see someone say, well, my uncle was talking about the same thing, my mother was talking about the same thing, that's because the guy that's in office has been feeding this nonsense to the people for 20 years. 30 years. You see people been in office for 20, 30, these congressmen have been sitting there for 20, 30 years, and so they know how to lay down seed and harvest when it comes time. But once you have once you raise collective awareness, you start saying, okay, I don't have to look at what they're doing on that side because the black dollar is worth 1.2 trillion on a bad day, 2.1 trillion on a good year. So instead of me trying to move out to where where the Anglo-Saxons are living, right? Why not try to make sure that I protect what I have in this area?
That's right.
Because I cannot put down an area that is majority white and blame them for keeping their dollars in that area. That's
right.
called community economics.
That's right.
Community economics can be filtered even in the African American area. The problem is that we don't create our businesses and go to our businesses. What we do is we create our businesses and we use the money that we make from our people and we go to another area of town.
Absolutely.
So that other area of town where there's a Starbucks, where there's an Applebee's, right? Eateries that don't want to come to the hood. Well, if you're taking that economic money, you're actually helping that area, which is why you have black politicians who run on Democrat tickets but live in Republican neighborhoods.
Come on. I hear you.
So I think what we really need to start doing is having powerful conversations where you have, and I'm not trying to be facetious, where you have mature African American males and women, right? And you have young African males and females who will learn from history, who will say, okay, this is a renaissance. Now I can take advantage of this and start understanding how my black vote matters.
Absolutely.
That's
The
right.
monolithic black vote has hurt us more than anything.
That's right.
And it's taken away the black power.
Yes.
So Republicans don't want to go to African American neighborhoods. I don't blame them, because the Democrats have laid their seeds down and they come out and they get their votes during harvest season. If we're going to change anything, we're going to have to preach about and advocate rising collective awareness and the importance of making sure that our economic dollars stay in our economic neighborhoods, which is the reason why you can go to certain areas now and there are streets that are in Vietnamese and there are streets who the language is in Spanish. Why is that happening? Those people take pride in their
That's right.
But let's go. I appreciate this conversation, because I think also, there's a history component that we have to also, keep in mind here. Also, we are, the majority of us around this table are black males, right? But I would also say that perhaps we got a significant amount of black males who are missing from the conversation, early on, in our households. And so, when we think about the Renaissance, what about the Renaissance for the family? All right? Because if you don't have the family, and we have heard the conversations many times, that, I've heard too many people say that we don't matter. But I think what we're saying in this conversation, we do matter.
That's right.
We do matter. And so, I think what we're saying here is that this problem is not just a one-tier front here. You know what I'm saying? Because, systems, when you remove the black father, those of us who are old enough to remember, when the black man, when the lady from the welfare department came by the house, you ran and took all the male stuff and hid it, because you couldn't get services. And so and so part of this thing, when I say government, the government has been instrumental since slavery, regardless of what party has, in terms of breaking our families apart. And when you break the families apart, right, you break the cohesion of all the other communities that happen. So when you think about the Vietnamese, when you think about all those other folks who come here and their families are intact, that makes, just think about intact versus not being intact, gives you some level of synergy, right? Versus when you're not intact, you're scattered. And what do we operate in today?
In a scattered mentality.
All right.
But we still, even, I agree with what you're saying. But again, we're going to have to come back to a point in where we take this responsibility back for ourselves. And we begin again to start creating and building businesses and letting our money circulate in our own communities. I'm not an original Austinite, but the East Side, right? From what I know, was predominantly African American for a long period of time.
Parts of it was.
Parts of it, excuse me. And then there was a point where a lot of African Americans started moving out into the suburbs and everything like that. This is my thing. It doesn't matter where we are, because we are everywhere, literally. But we still need to have that mindset of what you said, collectiveness, right? We need to come together, we need to pool resources, and we need to build. We really need to build. When you talk about Hispanics, and I don't knock them for what they do, Hispanics, Asians, white folks, for how they have built and have their money circulate in their communities. That's my premise. We need to do that so that we can give to our kids, I don't want my kids going and getting an education thinking that they're about to go work for somebody for the rest of their life, and that's basically it. No, I want to give back opportunities of business. I don't care if it's a dry cleaner.
Right, absolutely.
I don't care if you're franchising dollar stores, maybe not a McDonald's, but a Jack in the Box. You know what I'm saying?
You want independence,
we
man.
We have to get back to this independent
We
mindset.
want independence. And the
that's
fact,
a- and that's a
I
conservative
think
mindset.
also what we said earlier, if we go back to the history, and in part we mentioned this thing about education. There's never been a more group of people who have been more conservative than really the black people. right? And so, but again, but when you're not educated, you know, when you don't think collectively enough for yourself. And I think what happens is that sometimes, you know what, when you have made things easier for, let me take that back. When you have made things to be perceived easier for folks, people buy off into that, right? And then people get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And what we have to do is collectively tell people, you don't have to be uncomfortable when you're an entrepreneur. Right? When you're an entrepreneur, you do your own thing. You know what? And matter of fact, this brother knows is that I believe when your entrepreneur skills die, you die. Mm-hmm. When you stop wanting. I mean, and that's just not, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're not just creating things for your mind, you're trying to create things for your family, you're trying to think for your community, you're trying to create things for a better existence. Mm-hmm. And so when that element of you is died or gone from you, right? And what we have to do is try to figure out how to spark that again, because again, when we go back and look at those folks who was inventors, I mean, that didn't have anything, that didn't have the skills. And when you look at the things that we have been able to do, it's just sometimes, I always say that we have been a group of people who have always walked with the wind in our face. Now, it may not always blown hard, but it's always been there. It's always been, and every once in a while you deal with gusts. But the fact of the matter that many of us are still walking, when many of my other brothers have always had the wind at their back. And so and so it goes back to what Mike said. We got to know who we are, what we have been through. We're saying these songs in church that God didn't bring us this far to leave us, but do we believe? Well, we have gotten to where we are so routine about the things we say, the things we do. I mean,
I do believe that.
It's easy.
It's familiarity.
It's easy to say I'm blessed. Like I said, when I say, what does that mean? And they have to look at me. Well, because it's routine.
Yeah.
It's become common, right? I'm going to wait on God. Well, wait on God. God's already been here. And I created this thing.
Well, Clifton, I want to say this to you. As a mother, and also as a community worker, because that's been, it's just been what I've always done was volunteer in the community. You mentioned something about something that your parents mentioned to you when you were younger. So here's the thing. We have a lot of entrepreneurs out there. They know how to get their hustle on. It's the wrong hustle.
That's right.
So if we can grab those ones, and they're not just males, they women too.
Oh, of course.
Excuse me, females too.
More so.
They know how to get their hustle on. So if we can teach them the right hustle, because they have the entrepreneurial mentality. They know what it takes. Actually, they know they don't want to work for nobody. And it's easy and quicker to make that quick dollar, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that. But so my thing is that I used to sit out there on the curb with these boys that my son knew. And I'm like, okay, so what you gonna do with what you just got? And so then I'm saying, how long do you think you're gonna keep it? How long you think it's gonna keep you from going to jail or getting shot? What are you gonna do? And so all I'm saying is that we have to somehow, and all the time they don't wanna be reached, because 9 times out of 10, they feel like I can make my money quicker than you can on your job or whatever. It's just that mentality. And but somehow we have to grab these kids and just really teach them. I don't feel like we've mentored our kids enough. We have to mentor our children. All of them don't want to be mentored, but even just the fact of just walking down the street or just saying hello, building a conversation and rapport. I mean, I'm from the ghetto. I'm from 4-1. So I'm born and raised in Austin. And so, but you have to I started a boys club and a girls club. I'm like, Lord, these girls need help. And I'm like, these boys need help.
Yes.
It's just that parenting. We have to get in there and parent these kids like never before.
I love that you're bringing this up because that's what speaks to me. And just like you, my wife has mentored young girls in the church and outside of the church, especially when we're on the military base. I've always been a role model, not only to my kids, but any youth that I had reached to, right?
on.
But I always come back to this. It's, you know, we talk a lot about education, and yes, we need to be educated, but at the same time, there's a spirit, right? There's a spirit, and I believe this. There's a spirit of hopelessness in our youth. They
Yes.
don't believe in America anymore. And when I talk about divisive talk or division amongst us and white people or us and other ethnic groups, and why I don't particularly believe in that or see that, even though of course I see problems, I don't have my eyes closed, but I still believe in America.
Absolutely.
I believe in the fact that you can achieve and do what you want to do. I believe that this is the greatest country
Right on.
the globe.
You know, I think a
fought
lot
for
of
this
kids-
country, and I
kids-
don't see that
Well-
in our kids. And this is why our media,
Well,
the music, the way we are portrayed, all of these things, it's like you said, the about the harvest, right? When this is being instilled in you constantly, when you don't have a father in the home,
Right. I mean, and
when you're being bombarded not only from school, but in the home, the video games, all this stuff. And I'm not anti-video game. My kids got matter of fact, he's probably playing his video games right now. All I'm saying is that there is an air of hopelessness in our kids, and we have to put back in our children, our kids. This is America, and you can be and do and become who you want to become. We are not slaves.
Man, I tell you this-
We are not slaves. We have to act on our freedoms, and we have to mobilize, and we have to collectively come back together and create the environments in which our children can not only see that, oh, well, we do have other opportunities. People don't just wake up and become drug dealers. It doesn't happen that way. Matter of fact, drugs just don't come from the sky. It just doesn't fall in your hand and you go out there and you sell it. Next thing you know, you're locked up and you're in the criminal justice system. It doesn't work that way. That is an economic issue. And we got to get back to the economic.
Now,
Absolutely.
That is very
you know what I believe? I believe that this discussion indicates that it's important that people such as us get back out in the community and let them know that we exist.
we have to.
Now, one of the things
We have to.
when I first went to get active in the Travis County Republican Party, I just wanted to be a precinct chair, and that's all. And somehow the chairman says, "Well, Michael, you seem like the kind of guy like a challenge." Yeah, I think so. And oftentimes when I talk to my wife, I say, actually, the answer is in how we grew up, because we grew up in the oldest self-governing all-black community in the country. I call it the black capital of the world. It's the African-American capital of the world. It's a place called Lincoln Heights, Ohio. It's outside Cincinnati. It was the first area after you crossed the Ohio River where black folks could own property. When I grew up, it was 16,000 black folks. I think one white family, George Liggins, lived there for a short time, for maybe 2
Remember the
years,
name, right?
and then they moved. Yeah, because they moved to an adjoining neighborhood that's predominantly white. And the black community I grew up in was surrounded by almost all white communities that you didn't venture in. And then when we went there to play basketball, they threw rocks at our bus, and when they came to play us, we threw rocks at their bus. I mean, that's how it went.
I hear you.
But it was all black. And it was savings and loan there, Lincoln Hilltop Market. We had everything there but a cleaners. You had to go down to Lockland to go to the cleaners. That was the nearest cleaners. But we had drugstores. It was during segregation. But that, to me, is the answer that we need to get back to. Because during segregation, we were forced to deal with each other.
We surely
Now we
lost
have a
it.
choice.
We surely now. I would say this. I think that
I
we.
can't navigate.
I would say that we. I'm not. I don't think we advocated, but I think
Or
those of us who would live through it will say that there surely were some things that we lost when integration happened, right? I
Sure.
mean,
Integration
hold on,
was
if you think about Austin, Texas, this is in Austin. You had the high school, Anderson High School, where you had your doctors, your lawyers, you had all the prominent folks come to that place, right? And matter of fact, my teacher used to, matter of fact, I'm homegrown also. So I remember my teachers living in my community. And so if I got in trouble at school, and when they came home and knocked on the door and said, Miss Thompson, I look at this as a report on Kennedy. I mean, those kind of things. So once Anderson and Keelan, and matter of fact, Keelan, I'll give you a little history about Keelan. Keelan, when it was built, they didn't play any home basketball games in it because they didn't have any room for bleachers. So when they was winning, they won all the games on the road, right? But when they imploded such things, and I say this, and we can look collectively, I mean, with good intent, right? You know what I mean? With good intent. The outcomes in many of those communities that happen is, man, it's taken a lot of people a lot of time to rebuild from those things because you've lost a lot of healthy resources that was, with those part of your communities. And that's just not happened here in Austin. But it happened in a lot of places, it happened in a lot of places, and the book that I'm writing right now, because I was one of the kid who had a school right here and had to get up in the morning and go right across town, and they wanted me to be happy when I got to school after getting up 2 hours earlier than everybody else, right? Traveling in a big bus that's bumpy, right? And when I get to school, you want me to be happy just like everybody. Well, that didn't work. See, another thing that happened with that whole thing, no one told us or gave us any direction what to do after we got into the experiment. Right. Once we started getting bused and started getting integrated, right? See, like no one said, like when Miss Yancey walked around and I had a question, and Miss Yancey said, "Kenneth, what do you want?" Right? I answered the question. No one told us when we got out in these other schools when you raised your hand and a teacher walked, this teacher just walked by you as you didn't exist, right? See, nobody prepared us for that kind of adjustment, right? And so therefore, here you are, and I think I write in my book. Those of us in the hood that was in the front of the class, when we got bused, we was automatically regulated to the middle of the class. Those who was in the middle was automatically regulated to the back. Those who was in the back disappeared.
I just want to say something on the heels of that because I think you're absolutely right. People put down segregation as if it was, as if it is bad. They talk about segregation as if it's a bad thing. But the truth is that I plan on segregating myself from anyone that is adverse to helping me grow.
I hear you.
I segregate myself from anyone that is trying to hurt me or harm me, which is why I have a gun. I plan on segregating my family. I plan on segregating my family from anyone that would harm my family or keep my kids from learning.
Right on.
That's right.
I do not plan on bringing my kids to a public school unless there's reform. So I plan on segregating my kids educationally.
That's right.
The issue is that you are absolutely right. When we started to integrate, right, we started to lose the importance of segregation, right? The importance of segregation is this. In the African American community, as this brother pointed out before, we were throwing out some of the greatest minds long before they was in public schools.
Right.
That's right.
Carver didn't go to a public school
I hear you.
at all. But we wouldn't have peanut butter
Come
unless
on.
he had make peanut butter.
Let's make it clear. We're not saying that segregation was a bad thing. We're not using segregation as one of these things that to annihilate people. We're just saying that, hey, parts of people having some cohesion with people who look like
that's
them
part of it.
It's
That was
not
part
an
of it.
unhealthy thing.
It is not.
Because
it is not
we
unhealthy.
see what is the end result when you don't have it.
That's right.
Hell, we're
That's
living
right.
it.
It's true. Back in the day, white folks were going to Harlem to enjoy some of the best
Absolutely,
music
absolutely.
they ever
They
listened
doing the Lindsay Hop.
African
They
Americans
were
were going
they
to
were doing the
white
Lindsay
areas.
Hop. They were doing
Exactly. Black folks were going over to the white neighborhoods to listen to some of the greatest rock they had ever heard in their
Right,
lives.
right.
You can appreciate every ethnic group that exists. The thing we lack right now is modern day abolitionists. And if we're gonna be that right now, individuals are going to step out, leave this plantation mentality, leave this slave mentality. The problem is we are still having people tell us that we shall overcome. We're still preaching that, these roundabout fire stuff, and that's where these people, our kids, have this "I'm already losing" mentality.
That's right.
Because it's been fed into them that you need to overcome. It goes back to what you said when we first started. I'm already free. The moment you start convincing people that they're already free, they don't need to stand on the corners to hustle. They can use their mind, their creative mind, to do something a lot more powerful than
That's
they
right.
ever could have imagined
That's right.
if they approach it from a mindset of, I am already free.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that 100%. And I think, again, it goes back again. I think Mike said self-awareness. I mean, what we still collectively, and I don't like to say we because I'm pointing, is just how great we are. You know, and what we have overcome and our contributions, not only to America, but to the world.
That's right.
To the world. And I don't know, again, and I'm one of these guys that say, go back to black men. Because I think also we have kind of disappeared. We have, you know, I mean, even though I recognize racism and things of that nature, I still think that black men, we have fallen short, particularly when it comes around and educating and passing on things to our children, particularly things that we learn about the systems, and then we don't teach our kids how to navigate those systems. That's on us. Some of these things that's happening to our children is on us, right? Because we have not, now, I mean, whether you're an uncle, you don't have to be the daddy, you know. Some of these things, because we talk about the collectiveness, it's on us, right? And so, in order for us to make progress, man, we have not just to build that foundation. I think we sometimes walk past each other and don't even speak to each other.
Well, that is very true.
I walk in the building and I don't let that happen to me. And I don't care what they're affiliated with, you know, because there's a connection to my core. You know, there's a connection to my core. And I think that's what we all have here. We got a connection to our core. What we're saying here is that, you know, God made us with a purpose. Mm-hmm. That purpose is to be good and to deliver. And we can deliver just like anyone else can. In fact, we have delivered. In fact, we in spite of all the circumstances, we continue to deliver. But we also know that we can do so much better. Mm-hmm. We can see, because we can also reach out in our families, we can see where they have bought into the things where they say they can't, mm-hmm. right? They can't. All of those inferior things that they talk about. Not understanding that inferiority is not really part of their origin. But it's something that they have, it's the Kool-Aid that they have drinking over the period of time.
That's right.
Yes. One of the things I want to say, and I know I want to give everybody just a quick little minute to go around the table and say something. I have to bring the spiritual part of this in here, because we have to know who the enemy is that we're fighting against. And if our children could know that it's not each other, is not themselves, that is something higher that's at work in this whole thing. If they could determine and find out who the enemy is that they're fighting against, then they could really exercise that freedom that you're talking about. Also, I want to just say one thing about entrepreneurship. I was thinking about my daddy when we were growing up. My daddy was such a hustler, but he was an entrepreneur. He used to have a pickup truck, and he would put these pallets on the back of the truck. And he would go everywhere with these pallets, selling them, plus he used to sell watermelon. So, and then I was thinking about my mom, how she used to iron clothes, and she used to do laundry and stuff, better than the dry cleaners.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if we could begin to just pray that that spirit of entrepreneurship would begin to get stirred in our family, and I think really pray for our kids too, because they're seeing such a disappointment with their parents, and that's where that hopelessness that you're talking about is coming from.
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm going to stop because I can go on and on and on, but we don't have much time. So I just want everyone to go around and just say something, because we started something, and my question to us is, where is it going to go to now?
We can start with this little brother here.
Well,
Little brother.
and I appreciate that too. We do need to recognize that there is a God, right? And we do need to recognize that there is a spirit of hopelessness, but that is not in of ourselves, that is of the devil. I'm a Christian, and I do believe that, right? But as a Christian, right, I'm of faith that everyone, regardless of background and origin, we're all brothers and sisters in this. Mike pointed out earlier, what's good for our community is good for every community, right? This is my country. I fought for this country 3 times. I've lost friends behind Old Glory, and I'm not one to ever say that America isn't for me. I see that in our kids, though. I see in our kids, they don't have the belief and faith that America is for them. So that hopelessness seeps in with all this media induced craziness, and it produces an outcome that we're seeing. And I'll yield at that.
Oh, I want to just thank you guys for having me on. It's awesome. I don't get the opportunity to sit at a table filled with men who really understand the times, and so I'm grateful to be here. My parting words would be that we will grow as a community, as a people, as Americans, period, when we start using the only faculty that separates us from animals, and that is our ability to reason. And I think when we start reasoning along with like-minded people, I think we'll start seeing a change, not only just in America, but in the world, period.
Thank you.
I just like to say, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I really have appreciated the energy. So I thank you for inviting me. I would just say this is that men, we have a role to play collectively in our community.
Yes.
And then, if we talk about God, well, God said he made men first. He made men to lead. And why we're not leading, still a puzzle to me.
We got to get back to the fight and fight for what's right. Period.
That's right.
And I always plug my party. I believe that the people in my party are peculiarly situated because they control the government. And why shouldn't the government motivate and help people to do what they need to do for themselves? That's what I hope.
That's right.
Right on.
Because it can happen. We can do this.
Beautiful, man.
So,
Can I go?
Yeah, man, I enjoyed this, man. This is this. You know what? It reminds me, like, when I'm doing my show in the morning, man, how fast time goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I take.